Hi, this is Shilpa here. Welcome to my blog. Now, I've been a homeopathic practitioner for the last 14 years, and I want to use this wonderful opportunity to share with all my homeopathic colleagues my experiences in clinic of using a range of different homeopathic approaches in practice. Now, the reason for doing it is to be able to help, just compare cases, have your feedback, comments, and also give the best for our patients. Now, for simplifying the process of using these different wonderful strategies in practice, I found a very easy to use template which I would love to share with you today. Now, depending on your need, your patient's need, and also the disease condition, you can actually use any of the different strategies which fall within a particular stage. Now, I've classified the different strategies since the conception of homeopathy into 4 stages. Now, these 4 stages for me represent the different depths of uh, working on a particular disease condition. Now, for pros and cons of each strategy, feel free to download my free ebook, which is The Quest for Simillimum, an overview from the website. However, this template is something which is a bonus resource for somebody who's read the book so that they would understand it in a real clinical scenario. Now, I'll just run through quickly into the 4 stages of homeopathic practice. It's divided into 4 parts. It's stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, let's look at how you could look into a case of, say, osteoarthritis in a patient at all these different stages. Say you have a case which is at stage 1. Now, at stage 1, what you're doing is looking only at the diagnosis. So, all the homeopathic approaches which look at diagnosis of a case and all the remedies which are applicable for a particular homeopathic diagnosis fall under this strategy or fall under this stage. Now, so if you take a case at stage 1, this is the information you would gather from your patient. Say there is arthritis in the knee joint, you have the stiffness and the pain in the knee. There could be inflammation or there could be an erosion of the cartilage depending on the depth of the inflammation and the condition. Now, at this stage, there would be lots of different ways you can actually analyze this case and work out a remedy. Now, if you repertorize such a case, it's not really a very useful thing to do because when you repertorize, if you look in here, I've used 3 basic common symptoms and you find that you have about hundreds of remedies which fall into this category. And so for this particular stage, the most useful thing I find is actually go and refer authors and books who have written at stage 1. So there is this author, Richard Hugh. He has written his manual on therapeutics, and I find it immensely helpful because he has differentiated remedies with respect to their pathophysiology. So this is an extract from his book where he said, in case of an arthritis, if you have just synovitis, then these are the remedies which could be useful, like Bryonia and Pulsatilla and Heparin sulf. If there is an ulceration and pain associated with that in the cartilage, you can use more core. And if the disease has affected the bones, then the remedies which work on the bones are calc floor and salicia. Now, the potencies at this stage are very low, so that you could actually use, like a tissue salt, 6x, or you can use potencies lower than 12C, where there's actual material in the remedy prepared at this stage. And those are the remedies which, during proving, actually have an affection on the localized area. If you're looking at stage 2, the same case and the same patient, and if you can gather information at a more deeper level, then what you're looking is all the therapeutic approaches. Now remember, at stage 2, you get some more information at the local, which is peculiar, at the local level. So like for example, if you consider the same case, you might get 2 or 3 peculiar symptoms related not to the disease condition, but the individual, which is expressing locally. So say for example, you have the pain, but now you can describe the pain as being a bit sore and bruised. It's aggravated walking and moving, which is again a common modality. But he mentions that, or she mentions, there is cracking in the knee and there is a coldness of the knee to touch. Now, these are quite peculiar symptoms, and not every person with arthritis would have such a symptom. And then you can actually work with this extra information and look at the repertorization as well. So this is the repertorization I've worked out with those two peculiar symptoms. So 2 or 3 peculiar symptoms like pain, sore bruised knees, cracking in the joints, and coldness of the knees. And now if you realize the number of remedies you're looking at have actually decreased. So you have about 10 to 12 remedies which now pull up in, and you have to choose a remedy from these 10, 12 remedies as compared to about hundreds before. So it becomes a bit more easier. Now, the books I would actually use at this stage would be all the therapeutic books or the keynote books, say Ellen's keynotes. So these actually differentiate the remedies with respect to a few peculiarities at the local level. So say, for example, in Ledum, there is this coldness to touch, but it's much better by immersing the joint in icy cold water. Or in the case of arsenic, it's much better by hot applications. So if you realized these peculiar modalities and concomitants, as to say, actually help you understand which remedy could be chosen for your patients. Or if it's a case, if there is rust tox indicated, then you have this muscular pain or it's pain in the tendons, then say the joint itself, and it has this peculiar modality of aggravation first motion and better by walking continuously. Whereas if it's calcarea, then it's more about ascending or climbing upstairs and lifting heavy things. So these peculiar keynotes can actually differentiate your remedies and help you pick up the right remedy. Now, if you're looking at potencies, you can actually go a bit higher. So you're looking at around the 30C mark. And these potencies do not have to be given very, very frequently, and they would actually help the patient relieve the pain temporarily for a few days. Now, we could actually gather symptoms at stage 3 as well. So, at stage 3, what you're looking for is now the individualizing symptoms of a case, which is at the level of the physical and the mental generals. So, case stage 3 is about all those individualizing approaches where you're looking at the person's constitution and diastasis to actually prescribe the homeopathic remedies on. Now, at this stage, if we are like pursuing the same case, let's look at what could be the symptoms we gather at stage 3. So now the patient says they've always had this tendency to have muscular or weakness of the bones and muscles, and tendency to have easy sprains, the ankles or the knee joints spraining and always needing support. They say the joints, the pains are always worse in the damp cold weather. The lady cannot tolerate any cold, and she's quite anxious and very, very sad, especially when the days are a bit more cloudy and there's a lack of appetite with that. And there is this anxiety of being alone. And all this has started since her husband has died. So there is a specific psychosomatic relationship where there has been this grief since the death of her husband. And then since then, this knee has started really playing up. And every few things actually cause anxiety and palpitation and profuse sweating in her. So now you see, you're getting something more about the individual. And at this stage, when you start looking at cases, when you start repertorizing, you put in all these mental and physical generals. So if this is my repertorization, I have pain, damp weather aggravates, sadness, damp weather wet in, fear of being alone, fear of being in the dark, less appetite, better by hot applications, locally, sadness, aggravation cloudy weather, aggravation general in cloudy weather, and palpitations. So if you look at these symptoms, now you can see that the remedies coming up have been really precise, and they are quite peculiar, indicated on the individual. Many experienced homeopaths at this stage can actually spot the similar they would actually differentiate the remedy with respect to the miasm in this case, because the miasm is quite clear here. So you're looking at Kentian miasmatic analysis, and you're looking at a case where there is this weakness of the joints and the bones, and this tendency to sprains, and this aggravation in the damp weather. So you're looking at a psychotic miasmatic basis. So the remedy you're choosing would have the psychosis as a part of its picture, which can actually help pinpointing the remedies quite clearly. Some people might not need any repertorization for this case. And then now the number of remedies you're looking for has really come down to 3 or 4. Now let's look at what happens a bit further. So now that you start looking at stage 4. Now at stage 4, what you're looking is at the approaches at the sensation level or at the level of the vital force before symptoms are being produced. So you're looking at the core disturbance within the person, at the core disturbance at the level of the sensation and the source before it forms symptoms, at the energetic disturbances of the patient. It could be expressed at different ways. It could be expressed in the form of their dreams, in the form of their hobbies, their interests, their art, their if they have a specific hobby of music or art, it could be expressed in the form of energetic patterns at that level as well. So this is a very interesting approach which has been developed by Shankran in the last few years. And if you take the same case and you go and understand it at a much more deeper level, and you find that she says physically and mentally you start finding a common theme coming up. So physically she's saying the joints feel very weak, and they can break quite easily, and they require this external banding. And mentally she says, I need support. It's really hard since my husband has died, and I just feel that he was my major support emotionally and morally, and this anxiety and fear. And she wants to be always with the family, and she's very scared if the kids are away, or something might happen to them and she might lose them too. And she has these dreams of say the she had a very terrible nightmare where the body was her. She fell down from a high cliff and she was dashed to pieces, and or she was there was some sort of a fear of really being really can break up easily. So this innate weakness, or the knee joint, is quite weak and brittle. So this innate weakness is not just mentally, also physically. There is this whole tendency that they would require extra support. They can break very easily. They require this bonding and banding, and there is just not enough resistance to lifting heavy things. And this is expressed at different points of entry. And then you realize this remedy should have this brittleness in the structure at the very, very source, and this need for support. And so if you're looking, then what helps is understanding the kingdom analysis. So you're looking at a complete different way. You don't repertorize at this stage. Repertorization is something which works quite well at stage 2 and 3. However, now you're looking at complete different sets of books which talk about kingdoms, classifying remedies, getting the common themes of different remedies, and then a complete new mathematic opens up for you. So now you're looking at let's look at which is this kingdom which has this problem with structure and breaking of structure. And then in this case, I've also tried to look at the different sensations to see if you can find something from the symptom in the Mathemedica. So I've put in brittle bones and binding ameliorates, and crumbling of bones and independence want off and support ameliorates, to find if there is a thematic of different remedies coming up. And you see calcarea is coming up quite strongly. However, I will also confirm if we find that using your kingdom analysis. And you see that issues about the structure is a mineral kingdom. And this is a compound because it needs something to have stability. And it belongs to row 4 and row 2 because these rows have the themes of strength, resistance, and the theme of separation from loved ones. And column 2 is about this doubt, this anxiety about whether they'll be able to really do it on their own. Can they be independent enough and withstand the pressure? And can I be on my own, or can I not be on my own? So all these different themes coming together from different analysis of the rows and the columns. And then you find the remedy which comes up quite clearly is calcar. So not just in the Madramedica knowledge, but also in the kingdom analysis, because it's a well-proven remedy. So you can actually go a step further. If you've come so far and you've really confirmed the remedy at 4 stages, what you could do is you look back and then look at every stage, and you find that calcarb was one of the 100 remedies at stage 1. It was one of the remedies at stage 2 in those 10 or 12 remedies, and it was one of the remedies at stage 3 when you're looking at the personality of calcarb. So it was just becoming more and more and more clearer as we moved up the stages. And that's the whole beauty of using different strategies and different ways of confirming your prescription at so many different levels. Now, that was the most effective remedy for the patient, and it could give a so-called ideal cure, which means you have the benefit not at the local need level, but also the whole state changes. She becomes much more confident, the grief comes down, the dreams are no more frightening, the anxiety, the palpitation, all those things actually minimize through the process through. So it's not something which happens in a month's time, but it takes about 3 or 4 months for the whole process to unfold. And then you find this lady can actually becomes more decisive, can take decisions through the months preceding the treatment. And that is exactly what is a so-called ideal treatment in homeopathy. But it doesn't have to be that in every case. Now, in this case, you actually confirm the prescription in all the 4 stages. So for me, it's a so-called similimum. And you can just choose to travel to every stage in one session, or you can do it through multiple sessions throughout the follow-up process. And not every person might even go to every stage. So you can choose to say stop in between and say you stop at stage 2 because she couldn't give any more information at an individual level. So you would now have to work with those 12 remedies and find out which of these would work for her. And so if you find that, all right, Rustox has a bit of her symptoms and Ladum has a bit of symptoms and I give Rustox, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It will, but it will not give that sort of a relief which, say, a calcarb would give. But it will still minimize the local pain and give her enough relief to be able to have lesser stiffness and less inflammation. But that would be recurring. It could recur if it's not a very deep acting remedy. And then in the next follow-up or the follow-up later, you might need to go a bit deeper and find something, say, at least at stage 3. So it's all about following your patient and his needs. You can actually speak to them what are the pros and cons of working at every stage, but it's up to them. And this disease process, you will have to make the best choice for your patients and find the most efficient treatment protocol and strategy depending on your skill sets. So I think that is one of my really biggest learning process in these last 14 years, and choosing and able to choose a strategy according to the patient has been a real satisfying thing for me clinically, just not for me but also for my patients. And I hope sharing this has helped you, might help you work similarly in your patients and benefit from your practice as well. So I'd love to hear about what you think and what are your favorite approaches and what works for you in your clinics as well. So yeah, I love to see and hear from you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.